I'm really excited to talk about this car. This is the latest two-wheel drive iteration from the team associated camp. We have gone away from the RC10 B6. We are now into the B7 generation. There's been a significant change of the things that they have done for this car compared to its predecessor. And to make mine even spicier and more controversial, I have the R1 3-gear transmission in here. So, standard procedure around here, we're going to talk about how the car was built, how it came together, right out of the box, running it in its kit stock box form, how it felt, and then what we've done to it today, going over some racing footage as well. So, out of the box, fit and finish, how was it? Pretty good. I think it was like 92% spot on. Two key things to get this car to handle correctly that I didn't do when I initially built it. I took it to the track and was experiencing some steering woes. Had to fix them and then everything felt better. So what were they? Two things. The clearance from the top deck bulkhead and the steering bell cranks system. It was too tight. When you put your car together and all that stuff gets tightened down, if you feel any resistance in those bell cranks at all, it's not going to steer the way that it needs to. The remedy, pretty simple. You just have to go in with a cutoff wheel and grind away some of the material on the top deck where those bell cranks are coming into interference. Once you clear that area out, the car is going to steer and feel great in that particular area. The second area that I had to clear up just a little bit, and it's not unique, I've had to do this on pretty much every two-wheel drive buggy ever. The hub axle plastic piece that's in between the pivot system on the steering knuckles, you just have to remove a little bit of material. If you don't, it might be tight, and that tightness there and the tightness in the center made for a car that didn't want to steer at all out of the box. Once I cleared those two things up, everything was handling and feeling the way that it should out of the box. So what were my thoughts on the car, how it came out of the box? It was very confidence inspiring. I think that for the majority of people, the car that Team Associated gave us out of the box for the B7D is going to let people drive it around the track and not have to worry about it steering into the ground or having a rear end that was super active. Overall, it was very stable and easy to drive, I think is a fair assessment of its kit form. Now, how it pertains to me and my preference when it comes to setup and how I want a car to handle, it didn't have all the steering that I was looking for. Two things that I had to do to get it to behave the way that I wanted. Part number one, and I've linked all these parts down below with a setup sheet and everything in case you guys are curious, the front aluminum bulkhead. It comes with a 0-degree block, and going to a 2.5-degree block gives me more mid-corner steering that I'm looking for. Basically, right out of the box, I would have to go full lock on the steering wheel and just kind of wait for the car to steer. And I don't like that. I hate when I have to do that. I want all the steering on tap all the time is what I look for in a car. Going to the 2.5 front bulkhead gave me a lot more steering through the mid-corner, and I was happy. Taking it a step further, we shortened this front link, specifically on the outer ball link. It has that carbon top plate, and I believe the kit comes with a 0. This is the -2. Going to the -2 brings that outer ball stud in just a little bit, shorten this link up, and it definitely makes the front end a little bit snappier, kind of wakes it up, gives me more of that steering feel that I'm looking for. Last piece that we changed up front for just some general steering feel was the front arm. Out of the box, the B7D comes with the soft arms, and these are the hard arms. I feel like the soft arms just have a little bit too much flex character, makes the front end feel squishy or unpredictable. Going to the hard arms, everything feels more direct, and I just like the overall feeling it gave. Last thing I'll go over before we get into the electronics of the car is going to be the shock package. I feel like this is important to talk about because it is definitely different from the B6 and other two-wheel drive buggies that I've driven. Again, all of the information is linked down below if you're curious, but I have 3-hole pistons, front and rear, and I go in between 30 weight or 27.5 up front, and then I run 25 in the rear. It's very light, it's very soft, the car feels very responsive. When you run the thicker oils, the car just doesn't feel like it's doing what it should. It just feels like it's very numb, it's not in the track, and it's just not generating the grip and stability that I'm looking for. When you go to the lighter shock package, the car definitely wakes up, it's more drivable, has more feedback, and overall it's just a much better setup. I'm sure there are some circumstances out there where you're going to want the heavier oils or some traditional 2-hole pistons, but so far on the 4 different tracks that I've raced on, I have preferred this particular shock package. When it comes to springs, the kit comes with 13 mil team associated springs, and they're okay. They seem to get the car into its initial roll a little bit too quick, and the car can have some swaying effects at times. Don't know if that makes sense, but the springs that I have on here seem to calm that down and give the car a little bit more stability, predictability. They're the 1-up springs. Particularly, I have the 1-up yellows in the front and the 1-up golds in the rear. So that's all of the mechanical setup when it comes to just the geometry of the car. Now let's dive into this thing and see what we have under the hood. Like you've been seeing with my cars so far this year, we have the R1 Works horsepower package in here. Starting in the front, we have the Mod 3 ESC. We have the 4400 2S Shorty Pack, not the thin one, just the normal one. And we have a V21 HD 17.5 motor in the back. I have really enjoyed the R1 power feel compared to most that I've felt out there. For gearing, I have a 72 tooth spur. We'll talk about that lockout in a second. And I have a 31 tooth pinion on there. Having run this with the 5-gear transmission, I did have to gear this car a little bit taller, and I've kept it that way with the 3-gear. Talk about that in a second. What I had seen in some of the B6s previously, it seemed like we were maybe 2 or 3 teeth lower than where we're gearing this car. It's very subjective to your particular track, your application, but I think it seems that this is so far liking a little bit taller of a gear. Let's get to perhaps the most controversial part of this particular build is the R1 aluminum 3-gear transmission. I'm gonna start right from the onset and say, for those of you that are looking to buy your victory in the 21.5 and 17.5 class, is this a guaranteed instant win? No. Case in point, Mason Templeman, your current 2024 Roar 110 scale 17.5 national champion, did not run this 3-gear transmission when it was available. Probably mostly because Team Associated doesn't want their team drivers running this transmission. We'll talk about that in a second. Me running it, and I think a couple other cars had it as well, we did not automatically become the best 2-wheel drive 17.5 driver on the planet. However, let's talk about how it feels and what I think it does to the car. Talking firstly about the 5-gear transmission that comes in the car. They went that direction because it moves the motor forward. Why did they do that? Because with all of the tracks kind of coming up in grip levels, we're seeing more and more sealed dirt surfaces, more and more slick style racing, and it just has a lot of grip. When you have a lot of grip, you can generate a lot of corner speed if the car is set up correctly. Now, if you have a lot of this weight in the back of the car, it creates a funky roll mechanic in the mid corner. So if you can shift more of that central weight bias, the car is going to handle better in the mid corner. So that's why we see this 5-gear transmission from Team Associated. When running this transmission, do I think it's necessary at all? No. Do I think it makes a difference in the spec classes? Yes, honestly. When running this car in its stock form, I felt a little bit of power loss on corner exit. I would attribute most of that to the fact that we have a little bit more rolling mass and resistance with those 2 additional idler gears in the transmission. Having said that, What I like about the 3-gear is that it definitely wakes the car up on corner exit. The car just has more acceleration. It does seem to be kind of like a pro and a con. The pro is that you do gain some acceleration out of the car. The con is that you do change the roll mechanic in the mid corner when you shift that weight back. To try and offset this in my particular car, where my battery felt good with the 5-gear, go to the 3-gear, now I move the battery one hole forward to kind of bring some of that central mass back into the setup. I felt like it did a pretty good job, and it wasn't too big of a trade-off when it came to the mid-corner performance loss that you might experience when you go to the 3-gear. And I thought the car did really good. I was really happy with the setup, and we'll go over that footage in a second. Before we get to it, I just want to mention the last piece of equipment that I am playing with from the R1 Works laboratory is this lockout system. I don't know if I'm completely sold on running a lockout system in the 17.5 class. I think that the 17.5 cars have gotten so fast that eliminating the failure point of a overload with the slipper assembly. A slipper is good because when you reach that point of too much load being transferred from the tires into the transmission, what's the failure? The slipper. And then your idler gears are saved. Potential failure point aside, what's the performance of running a lockout in 17.5? A pretty noticeable amount of gained acceleration, if I'm being honest. Under corner exit, car seems to get up and boogie pretty good. On landing, the car seems to go a lot faster than it did with the slipper. Oh, and of course my car is rolling super fast and shed a good amount of weight with the titanium turnbuckles from Whitz Racing, the titanium top screw set, Whitz Racing, and we have the ceramic bearings from Whitz Racing. I do have a coupon code if you guys haven't seen it. RHRC saves you 20% on the Whitz Racing website. Link down below. So my car is super lightweight, has a setup that I like, goes super fast. Let's take a look at some racing footage and see how it does.
Two-wheel drive expert stock buggy 17.5. Here we go. Racers ready. Marshall's ready. Everybody's going to go on the tone here in less than 5. It's going to be Ryan Harris leading the charge as they come around the 180 at the top of the hill. Through the Dragon's back he goes. Nolan Manchester right there with him as they come through the triple now. Got a little bit of a breakaway here. Looks like for Ryan Harris as he is 1 second up on the field. 1 and 2 beginning to break away in that number 3 spot. Tom Sherman. Oh, they're really backing up here in the back of the pack. They're trying to get it worked out as one stuck in the pipe here. Ryan Harris out in front. Nolan Manchester in that number 2. Tom Sherman, Scott Blaney running 3 and 4. Kermit Butts in that number 5. Brandon Koji in that number 6. Zach Riggs in the 7. Jake Blaney in the 8. Austin Craig in the 9. Blake Mofield in that number 10 spot. Race number 15 currently on the track. Race 16, you're coming up next. Ryan Harris right now with the comfortable lead up on Nolan Manchester. 1.4 seconds up last time by the line. There he comes down the front straightaway. Manchester keeping tabs with him. Only 1.5 seconds back. Harris carrying the front end on that associated buggy. Working the back section of the track. Here he comes on to the front straightaway now. Ryan Harris, oh man, lays down a 14.5 that time by. Had that two-wheel drive stock buggy. Manchester going to bounce it up the pipe, rolls upside down. Giving up some valuable time here to Harris. Harris back to the front straightaway once again, clicks off another 14.8. Every lap so far in the 14s except for that very first one, but he was way ahead of the start-finish line, so that one don't technically count. Here he comes on to the front straightaway once again, 14.7 that time by there. Oh, man, Harris on fire here in the first 2 minutes of this 5-minute A final. Got one stuck in the pipe there. Per Marshall hustling over there to him. It's Harris, Manchester, Sherman, Blaney in the 4, and that's Scott Blaney. Brandon Koja holding on to the 5. Zach Griggs working at number 6. Austin Craig in the 7. Kermit Butts in the 8. Jake Blaney 9. And Blake Mofield in the 10. Your race leader over here on the right-hand side of the track. Coming across that start-finish line. 14.5 that time by. That's his fastest lap. 14.573 for Harris. Enjoying that clean track all around him. No pressure from the back. Manchester still working in that number 2. Manchester now onto the right-hand side of the track. He's about a quarter of a lap back. Oh, we got a second pipe. There's Ryan Harris, Nolan Manchester, Tom Sherman, 1, 2, and 3. Scott Blaney in at number 4, Brad Nicosia in the 5, Austin Craig 6, Carmen Butts in the 7, Zach Griggs in the 8, Jake Blaney in the 9, Blake Mofield in the 10. 3 minutes down, 2 minutes left to go. Ryan Harris right now out in front, got a 5.4 second lead here up on the field. Ryan Harris still out in front. Man, Ryan Harris with a monster lap last time by. I had to adjust my minimum lap time to set at 14 seconds because that young man just clicked off a 13.8 out of that two-wheel drive stock buggy. Wow. That man is moving with 1:20 left to go. Got 1:10 left to go, 1:10 remaining. Nolan Manchester in at number 2. Manchester, fast lap for him, 14.4. Talk about hitting the perfect lap, the perfect line, 13.8.
1 minute left.
That's impressive. Nolan Manchester working at number 2 right now, 5 seconds back of the 1. Got Tom Sherman holding on to the number 3. Scott Blaney working the 4. There goes Harris coming across the line, 15.2 that time by.
45 seconds left.
45 seconds left to go here in this A final for two-wheel drive expert stock buggy. It has been the Ryan Harris show since the sound of the tone as he comes back across the line, clicks off another
30
15.
seconds left.
15.3 that time by.
$15 seconds left.
Now winding on down here. Nobody going to be able to catch Ryan Harris here, looks like. Ryan's car beginning to fade a little bit. 15-second laps. He continues to click off as Manchester is racking off the 14-second laps. Oh, front straightaway, one upside down, right here at the start-finish line.
Brad Nicosia done. Zach Griggs done. Kermit Butts done.
Here he comes back over here on the right-hand side of the track. It is going to be Ryan Harris coming across the line and taking the win. Here in 17.5, expert stock two-wheel drive buggy. Nolan Manchester going to come home in the 2. Scott Blaney 3, Tom Sherman 4, and
Jake
Brad
Blaney
Nicosia rounding out your top 5.
So there you have it. For once in Ryan's life, he ran basically a perfect main event and finally beat these young kids. Nolan is super fast. It's pretty rare these days that I get to put one over on him, but it felt good to get a new car performing at its near maximum potential and grab a victory and a TQ. After we went over the build, told you guys what I thought, went together pretty good. Dial in those front steering components, make sure it steels right. Throw in your electronics package of your liking. Just make sure that you gear it right. Maybe go up a couple teeth in case you feel like the car's a little slow. Throw the 3-gear transmission in if you can. If you are sponsored by Team Associated, you're not going to be allowed to put that transmission in because they are looking to develop the 5-gear transmission as of now. And if you have that lockout system in, it's probably something that will work very well in the 21.5 class. 17.5. I'm still 50-50 on it. I'm waiting for the thing to explode, but until it does, I'm enjoying the performance gain that it has given me so far. Would I recommend that somebody goes out there and grabs a Team Associated B7D today? Yes, I think that Team Associated has done an excellent job at developing this new generation of car. It gives me a lot of confidence on the track, and it seems that they have worked very hard to provide a continued trackside support system from all of their factory team drivers and regional components as well. So for now, I'm going to continue racing this thing. If you guys have any questions about it, feel free to drop it down in a comment below. If you want to see any of the parts that I put into this and the setup I'm currently running, that's down there as well. And that's going to be it for this one. Thanks you guys so much for watching. See you next time. Peace.